Welcome to the Marketecture podcast. This is Ari Paparo. I'm here with Eric Franchi, and our guest this week is Matt Egol, who is a longtime friend of mine. I actually went to business school with him back when I still was young and sprightly and wasn't even involved in .com stuff yet. And he is a longtime consultant, founder and CEO of JourneySpark, which is a consulting company. He's an author of a book called CX and Culture Connection. And he is now, the reason we're having him on is that he's now the one of the leads at AgenticAdvertising.org, the new nonprofit that is spearheading AdCP. Eric, how you been? What do you think about this whole like multiple nonprofits proliferation thing?
The question is there a need for another trade arc? So that's the question I want to get into with Matt today. I feel like I know what his answer will be with respect to what's going on in the space and the need for it. But I think that's interesting. And then Matt is at the forefront of all of these conversations, so I just can't wait to get his perspective on all things AI, even down to all the stuff in the refresh with a lot of the news around Super Bowl and all these AI announcements.
Yeah. Did you watch Super Bowl, I assume?
Of course. We're going to get into it. We'll talk about our favorite ads.
Who's your team? Are you a Jets fan or a Giants fan?
I Giants.
Giants. I think one thing that was annoying about the Super Bowl was Bon Jovi introducing the Patriots. That really didn't strike me as okay. That kind of crossed the line for me.
Yeah, that's culturally unacceptable in New Jersey. I don't know where that was coming from.
It's okay to like drink Dunkin' Donuts. We don't have to be like super prejudiced against that region of the country, but the Patriots, like it's just it was like Ben Affleck not available. Like why John Bon Jovi? I don't appreciate that.
Anyway, hey, how many days till Marketecture 3?
Oh my God, I have to write a deck. Oh my God, it's 30 days. So like, I have, so we all have our homework here. So I have to create a deck because I'm the MC, I'm the intro. I gotta like bring it. Eric, you got to select some startups, but I think we're pretty close on that. And then listeners, you know what you have to do? You have to buy some tickets. So like we're 30 days out, man. What are you doing? Like I keep getting these texts from people like, hey, should I come? Yeah, you should come. Or like, hey, can I get a free ticket? Like, no, you can't get a free ticket. Just buy a ticket. So the code is ARIPOD30 and you get 30% off. And the website is marketecturelive.com. And we're announcing new speakers all the time. So some new announcements. I'm not even sure these are on the website yet. But we're rehashing some of our most popular speakers from previous events. We have Chris Kane and Micah Sullivan are going to rerun what they called the debate about inventory quality, which was definitely one of the most popular things from our first Marketecture Live. And then Rob Leathern is coming on. He's an expert in policy and things like that. And he's going to talk about the fact that your house is infested with bots and they're doing things you're not going to be happy about. Also, one of the most popular segments from the last Marketecture Live. So I'm excited to bring in some of these deep thinkers who have been on the show. They're friends of the pod, as they say. So again, register marketecturelive.com and use code ARIPOD30. To get a discount. Hope to see you then. Okay, with that, let's jump in with Matt Egol and AgenticAdvertising.org, AdCP, and all that good stuff. All right, welcome, Matt Egol. You seem to be coming to us from some very consulting-like background, some nameless, faceless hotel ballroom or something. What's this background you're showing here?
I am in the Wynn Hotel in Vegas, back in Vegas and CES for the Medallia Experience Conference.
All right, that sounds pretty exciting. Not on my calendar. So Matt, you and I go way back, right? Like we went to business school together. We were both at Columbia in the 90s. I always thought of you as like kind of the ultimate management consultant guy. Like you really dove in. You were at Booz Allen for quite some time. Right. How's it been? How have you seen like the world change?
When you and I went to Columbia, the internet was still a puppy.
It was
a new thing back in 97 and 98. And, we've seen a lot of change over the years. The media business is being moved from more of a pure entertainment to more of a technology data-driven business. And we've also seen brands move from buying ads to building experiences. So advertising is still really important, but brands are publishers and brands are investing heavily in, how does advertising connect with customer experience, whether it's e-commerce or loyalty or mobile or what have you. So that's been a fun ride for me as I started on the media side in the media practice at Booz, which is actually where Randall Rothenberg and I met when he was the CMO of Booz, and I ended up leading the digital retail team, and then helped launch Booz Digital. And now we're back together at JourneySpark, doing work with Agentic Advertising.org and other clients, and it's been a fun ride together.
Yeah, I don't want to spend too much time down memory lane, but it's kind of a hard to imagine. But in the late 90s, in Columbia Business School, the internet people were this small minority, and we had to sit through these classes where they kept talking about how awesome like the classifieds were, and whether telecom regulation would be the next big important thing in digital media. And I remember even sitting in a professor telling the whole class that like digital music would never work. Right? It was just too much bandwidth.
Yeah, we had to memorize a lot of acronyms in telecom, and but you know what? There are a lot of changes that happen, and I actually think there's some parallels to what's going on. We'll get more into AdCP and agentic advertising, but with standards adoption, fall into different patterns. And I think what's happening now actually has more in common with like HTML and things that are more cutting across many industries and drive transformation and new things emerging, as opposed to narrow with an industry like the Swift banking payment system.
Yeah. So that gets us to our topic at hand. So we've been talking a lot about AdCP on this podcast, maybe too much. I've been told too much by some listeners. but I was happy to see your name and Randall Rothenberg put out as leading a new nonprofit organization called AgenticAdvertising.org. Tell me about it. What is it? How do you get involved, et cetera?
Well, so AgenticAdvertising.org or AAO, the brands like Alpha, Alpha, Omega, it's actually a different kind of association. We actually think of it more like a professional association than a traditional trade association, which represents the commercial interests of buyers or sellers. AAO is a community of builders, which cuts across brands, agencies, publishers, and tech. And it's focused on the development and adoption of open standards, education, and professional certification. So unlike trade groups like the ANA or 4As that represent buyers and sellers, AAO is modeled more after the IEEE or IAPP in privacy. Its goal is to advance the discipline and the competence of the people practicing it. So it's also into the professional development side and certification, not just the standards. So the standards are really where it grew out of an open source development community. But this is a much broader movement across industries and across roles in organizations than just the tech side.
Do you think there's going to be like accreditation of some kind in the future?
Absolutely. That's where this is headed. Like an ANSI certification. When we've done over 100 interviews with executives across industries, as well as a survey of the 1,300 people who participated in that October Zoom launch for AdCP. And we actually heard 80% of people say there needs to be a new organization. And this is a broader tent than participate in other organizations. A lot more startup energy, a lot of individual practitioners and not just the big companies really embracing the openness of what we didn't fully realize with the open internet. So this is a bigger tent bringing people together. And when you look at what makes successful changes occur, there's actually a lot of the more change that occurs in the way work happens, not just the technology, the more you need the professional certification side, which is like a big part of the success of organizations like IEEE. And the individuals are the ones who govern and own the professional certification side, whereas the corporations drive the adoption of the standards. So this is a hybrid model that needs both corporations and individuals.
Is the certification, if you have one, going to be limited to humans?
That's a great question. We see dual certification because we're trying to build trust, Ari. And the trust needs to be both of people and of the claims of the organizations. So we see the member directory as needing to have validity, where the claims of companies needs to be certified. So that's part, it's like the good housekeeping seal of approval. So we see the corporate certification as well as individual certification.
Right. And bot certification. Like if my Claude bot
Yes.
is better at ad ops than I am.
Well, we're not thinking of it quite the way you are, although now you're making me think is this bot actually certified to do the way an individual would be? We were thinking it more like, if the standard says you need to do these things around brand safety or identity or things like that, does it actually conform to the standard?
All right. You said 80% of the people surveyed wanted a new organization. There are two other organizations that are directly relevant here. There's like 20 other organizations in total, but there's two that are really close.
There's actually more. There's actually more than 3,000 nonprofits serving the marketing and media industry. So there's a few that come to mind first, but if you scroll down the search results, there's a lot of other ones.
Terry, get us a nonprofit Lumascape. I want to see it. That would be the lowest ROI activity Terry and his minions could possibly do.
All right, but before you go on, Matt, were you surprised at that number? I was surprised when
Absolutely.
you said 80%, just given the, all the air that gets sucked up by maybe the two or three majors, and then the 3,000. It's like, what does the world need? Yet another one. But I think in this moment, what the world needs is yet another one, huh?
Well, we basically thought this needs to be more than an open source development, GitHub group, and just the technical standards, because you want to drive the practice around it. So that one of the first questions is, well, should this live somewhere else, right? And build on the great work that everyone else is already doing. I don't want to take away from all the great work that should continue to happen. And our vision for AO is actually highly collaborative. Look what we're doing with Prebid is actually an example of collaboration versus competition. And we want to see the same thing with ANA, with IAB, with the Consumer Brand Association, with other things. Now, what's different here is because it's across many industries, and because this is actually broader than, we don't think of this as Programmatic Plus. We actually don't think of this as just like adding Agentic to Programmatic. Because if you look at the value chain, I'm going to talk two things here. One's the breadth of the value chain. Most of the early activity and value of Agentic is actually in discovery and planning, which is left of transacting. And it's going to extend over to measurement, which allows more of a stateful instead of stateless. It's memory. It understands the provenance. Ben Massey said this really well at Triton, that like programmatic is like the RTB is like the high speed rail, and Agentic and AdCP is more like the nervous system that sits above it. So this is a broader across the value chain, and it's also it's not competing with RTB. It's actually a broader set of inventory that's relevant here, and a broader set of activities in the value chain. So we want it to work together, but we don't see it as a replacement for or in competition with RTB. RTB will continue.
So let's take the topic of Prebid first, because there was this headline. I'll read it. The headline says, Prebid takes over AdCP's code for creating sell-side AI agents. Please parse that headline for me with regard to a couple things. Number one, why does your organization exist when Prebid has an organization that presumably could do something similar? Two, what does it mean to take over your code? And three, why is it only sell-side agents in that headline?
Just so everyone knows the context here, AO transferred its sales agent repository to Prebid. And Prebid's going to this will allow us to leverage the Prebid developer community and the thousands of publishers they work with for ongoing management of the sales agent development. And the Prebid sales agent will continue to work under the ad context protocol, AdCP, governance framework. So Prebid is managing the code, allowing AO to focus on the market, like the education, the certification, adoption of use cases and the broader governance framework. So they're complementary. Without the relationship with Prebid, we've been doing a lot more hands-on keyboard development and really pushing into that area, which would be needlessly duplicating work. And there's thousands of publishers that we're tapping into to more rapidly get use cases out into the market. So it's a real win-win for everybody.
Is there a separation between the standard and the code that we should understand? Like, is your organization going to maintain the standard for AdCP and Prebid is the sample code?
Exactly.
Okay.
Right. So there's a distinction between protocols and standards.
Yeah, sure.
Right. So like we're more focused on the protocol and then maintaining the integrity of the standard, but not in this case, we don't want to get into the code writing. We want to tap into the energy of the Prebid community.
Okay, this is a little bit like the way the IAB maintains OpenRTB protocol or standard, either way. Sorry. and then Prebid implements it in code. That's a similar analogy?
Exactly.
Okay, so then the last part of the question was, they specifically are sell side. That's what Prebid does. Does that mean that the buy side code still is with you and you're looking for someone to take it over?
Well, I'll say definitely it stays with us, and it's possible that we will forge other collaboration opportunities that have, we leverage this experience. There's many different types of agents. Now, just if we broaden the aperture for a second, this is all about agentic commerce and marketing and customer experience. So there's a broad lens. We're not talking about sales and service agentic. We're really focusing on marketing here. We're not trying to look at everything, but there's connectivity to the customer experience side around leveraging data signals and being able to optimize the advertising, leveraging the full set of data signals and the rest of the experience, and having content experiences be seamless across the whole omnichannel experience. So there's shopper agents, Sparky at Walmart needs to talk to, or you're going to have new, agents in the LLMs talking to retailers. Already a huge amount of web traffic is being, staying within the LLMs rather than, I should say, it's not becoming web traffic, right? So when you design websites in the future, you need to think about like human-centered design takes on a whole new meaning when like half the people there are bots. So that's agentic. There'll be creative bots, there'll be data signal bots. So it's not just buying that we're talking about here. All these bots need to be interoperable and work together. And that's why when we talk about the breadth of the value chain and there being many industries involved and not just buyers and sellers, we're all builders.
Right. But are you saying that bigger picture is part of agentic advertising or
yes?
Where do you draw the line? You said marketing is the line?
Yeah, like we debated, like even calling it agentic advertising.org is actually constraining.
Okay.
This is really marketing, but we want to focus on how advertising connects to the rest of the marketing. So it's a paid media and how paid connects to owned and earned rather than trying to really drive it holistically and all have owned and all have earned.
Got it. Okay, let's talk about the beef with the IB Tech Lab. What's going on? I mean, there's definitely beef. Like, I feel like I haven't really dove in, but it feels like the IB is saying we don't really need new protocols, new organizations. We were fine as is. You should just use our existing documentation. Please tell me I'm wrong, they're wrong, you're wrong. Who's wrong?
Well, we actually don't think there needs to be or really is a beef. There have been a lot of conversations, but we really want to focus on collaboration, like I mentioned. We see AAO as not for buyers or sellers, but all builders. And it's a big neutral tent, like we said, right? It's really around humans to govern autonomous systems responsibly. So given this, we want to work together, we want to collaborate, but there's different folks involved in AO. If you think of a Venn diagram of who's involved in each, there's overlap. But the AO tent includes many more participants than are part of IAB. It's also a broader lens of where we're focused across the value chain and a broader set of inventory that's relevant here. So we want to focus our collaboration with not just IAB, but others where that intersection is strong, but not the members actually spoke when we set this up. Because one of the first questions, should this be separate? And they said yes. Many of whom are in the IAB.
Why do they think it should be separate? What's the short answer for why it should be separate?
Avoid the perception of capture, openness, a broader set of participants driving the standards. So I'm not saying IAB is captured, but we want to make sure that the agenda we're pursuing for AAO is designed from the beginning to be not representing sellers. We want to make sure it's representing everyone and that it's representing a broad set of interests, not just a narrower group of sellers, which is what a trade association does.
Yeah, I mean, the IB historically, in the dawn of programmatic, the biggest criticism of the IB was that it was a seller organ. They didn't really represent buyers of programmatic very well. They've changed a lot, and they're you could almost make the argument that the IB is defending programmatic against Agentic to some extent.
Yeah, now people complain about something else.
Well, I think you're right that the whole launch of Tech Lab was a vehicle to broaden the participation of the membership, but there's still a narrower set of members in IAB in terms of size of companies and like the orientation of the players. And I think the collaboration with IAB will be very important. So will with the ANA. I think that is very, very important here. I think the IB gets a lot of attention right now, but it's settling down, and a lot of it, I like to let people like Ben comment on that or other members rather than get into the whole LinkedIn back and forth, because I think it's not productive.
Gotcha. So in terms of where this movement is as of, February 2026, what I had heard from people, when I talked to people at the IAB leadership meeting a couple weeks ago, what I heard was something like, okay, we've done a couple test campaigns. We had the CEO of Programmatic on the show talking about how they did the first ever test campaign. There's a lot of interest in doing test campaigns, on the buy side especially, but there's really no volume, no revenue, and we shouldn't expect it anytime in 2026. That's kind of the consensus opinion I heard. What are you seeing in terms of like actual activity for using these things?
I think if you kind of step back and look at this in the broader context of the adoption of a new standard, and this has the potential to be very disruptive, we're actually where you'd expect to be 1 quarter into the adoption cycle. That's all we are, 1 quarter in, which is a very thin but meaningful, set of things happening. So initially, people are testing to make sure, like, technical feasibility. Does it work? Does it do what it says? Is this scalable? And we've seen some initial tests of buyer and seller with like Programmatic and Triton and Scope 3 and Yahoo and others. And now Salesforce is getting involved now too to help leverage their data. So we're seeing activity occur, but it's still thin and it's still focused in the planning and discovery portions of the value chain. It will expand. You'll see more on the creative side in the future. We see a lot of people start to talk and wade in, like their brands getting involved in. There'll be more announcements in the coming weeks about some major brands that have joined. 3 of the big agency holding companies have joined AO. So there's going to be a lot more experimentation. I think it'll accelerate over the course of the year.
Last question. Give me an update on governance. So you and Randall are interim heads, and then there's going to be an election of a board or something like that. I read on your website, but could you just walk the audience through that?
Yeah. So Randall and I are both partners at JourneySpark Consulting, and we're acting as advisors to current board, which is a handful of folks. But the first elected board and will be around an event we're going to do in May in New York. That'll be invite only, around 120 to 150 people. And the first board dinner will be around that event in New York. We're looking at around 40 to 50 board members split equally across brand, publisher, agency, and tech. So we want that to be represented by design, to be a mixture of those players. We call them the primary categories of different size companies, where one company equals one vote, right? So if you have 1,000 subsidiaries or one, you're one vote, right? If you're a million employee, if you're 200,000 employees or 2,000 employees, you're one vote.
Do the bots get to vote?
The bots will not get to vote, but individuals will be involved more on the education certification side. So individuals will vote on professional certification, and corporations will vote on the standards adoption.
I'm starting a new org called adclaude.org that's bot only, no human beings. They could just talk about their ad ops problems and complain about all the confusing standards and nonprofits in the industry.
When bots hang out in a room, do they still use jargon?
I want the bots to come up with a new acronym. That would be the sign of sentience. All right, this was awesome. Thank you for taking us through this. I know it's complicated. We're gonna take a quick break and come back with a little bit of a delayed takes on the Super Bowl, more AI news, and some earnings. So we'll be right back.
All right, we're back, everybody, with the refresh, and we have Matt on. So this is going to be a lot of AI. Just putting it out there. Just be prepared. But
How's it
before we
different?
talk about that, I know. Let's talk about the Super Bowl. We didn't have the bet of how many AI company ads there would be, but you thought there would be 10 or so, and you were right. There were 9. 9 companies, either explicitly AI companies or, like talking about their AI capabilities. So well done, Ari.
Yeah, I kept a little notebook by the side while I was watching just to record this. There are definitely some borderline cases like the Alexa ad or the Ring ad, but I went with how many are literally just selling prompts, and I got 9. I'll list them: Wix, OpenAI, Claude, Copilot, GenSpark, Gemini, Alexa, AI.com, and Base44. That was my count.
Yeah. Oh, God. So we should talk about the Super Bowl for a couple minutes. So first was AI.com. So somebody bought, so the founder, as I understand, the founder of Crypto.com bought AI.com, wanted to launch a new thing. I think he bought the domain for $70 million and didn't buy the traffic bursting capabilities. So he basically crashed the site. So you know what? It was a viral moment for him. That was memorable. Before we get into maybe everybody's favorite ad, just to underscore what you were talking about, that this was the AI Super Bowl, I caught a link in Fast Company that there were 15 out of the total 66 commercials, so it's roughly 23%, featuring AI in some way. Either it's promoting an agentic product or using AI in the ad itself. So absolutely, this was the AI Super Bowl.
Yeah, I think it cuts both ways, because people's immediate reaction is like, oh, this reminds me of the crypto Super Bowl, which was however many years ago, which was right before a lot of the crypto winter. And it reminds people of the .com Super Bowl of 2000, when everyone, Pets.com went out of business like 4 weeks after their Super Bowl ad ran. I think the continuing theme here is that AI has a really bad PR image right now. The normies do not like AI. The people like us are obsessed with it, and the normies hate it. And I'm not sure these ads did a lot to solve that problem.
Yeah, let's talk about that before we get into our favorite ones. So leading up to it, it's so funny. Like, this feels like it was months ago, but this was just last week. Leading up to it, all anybody could talk about was the Anthropic ad that was dunking on OpenAI, not by name, about running ads on the LLM, and Anthropic saying they would never do that, and just having these ads that dropped. People were so fired up about this. They were, and everybody loved it. And it turns out it was like a nothing burger. And there's some conflicting data on this, but there was, some data that made it around that normies didn't love the Anthropic ad. And they were actually kind of weirded out, or they didn't get it, and they were wondering what the hell was going on, which I thought was pretty fascinating. What did you guys, and maybe you were with some people, what did you guys think when the Anthropic ad finally came out?
I thought it was a little anticlimactic. Like, it really works on the first view, and that's always one of the big questions a lot of these agencies have, is whether to pre-release the ads or not. And it seems like it really cuts both ways. And in this case, maybe it took a lot of the emphasis out. Also, there was some reporting, or I think it's true, that they toned down the tagline at the end to make it a little less
they changed
aggressive.
it a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. So I
think
do think, yeah.
I think that ad lost some impact because it didn't have it was a lot of words, a lot of talking, and it didn't have as much emotional appeal, so it wasn't very memorable.
Yeah, well said. I was surprised by the OpenAI ad. I thought the OpenAI ad for Codex was really good. We'll put a link to it. I think the tagline was, "You can just build things." It was inspiring. It was fun. Like, it drove emotion. So I thought OpenAI was better.
I like the OpenAI ad. I'm not sure how many people had moved to do anything, but but it was nice. I think the winner was Gemini. The Gemini ad was brilliant, with the mom
Excellent.
showing the kid how their room will be decorated.
Excellent.
Really
Excellent
good.
ad. Yeah. Okay, AI ads aside, we'll start with you, Matt. What was your favorite Super Bowl commercial?
It was the dancing robot with the vodka.
Oh my God.
Go on.
It was just, I thought it was cheeky. I thought
Yeah,
it was
it was
clever.
cute,
It was
yeah.
irreverent. It was fun.
You got a runner up?
The Budweiser ads I like the horse with the bird with the eagle. I thought that was really cool. Two Americana images. It made me think of Snoopy and Woodstock.
Yeah. All right. What about you?
Oh my God. The Budweiser ad with the eagle. When it first came on, I said to my wife, like, "Oh God, I can't take the horse. The horse schmaltz is like what I called it." But it wasn't that bad. It was kind of funny. So I'll give them some points on that. I really did. I think the Gemini ad was maybe the best ad of the whole game. And there were definitely, some weak ones. I as a watcher of ads, the biggest thing I hate is the surprise brand at the end, where you're 25 seconds into a story and you don't know what the brand is. I think it's just a waste of money. Like, those ads just don't work. Using comedy or drama or whatever for this giant setup, and then it's like insurance. I think it was Rocket Insurance had one of those. I can't even recall the ad anymore, but it just doesn't work. It's bad use of money. You got to have your logo at the start. A good example is, I think, Dove Soap had an ad that was like, continuing their support of women. But what they did, and I'd have to find the actual creative, is like they showed Dove at the very start. They're like, "Dove brings you blah," and then they showed the emotional story of the teenage girls, and then they closed it with Dove. That's just so much more effective.
Yeah, that was an excellent ad. I too, just pulling on the heartstrings. I thought Budweiser was good. I love the little baby chick into bald eagle. I thought Duncan was good. Just packed with the celebrities and just being like very, very, very self-deprecating. And then the one that was, I don't think it was a PSA, but it almost was like a PSA. The tight end for the non-invasive prostate exam. I thought that one was really good, and maybe just because whatever demographics. But I thought that one. Do you remember that one?
I thought it was funny that they didn't emphasize the double entendre of tight end. Like, they just threw it in tight end. We just picked that for a prostate exam without mentioning why.
Again, if you're in the demo, you got the whole thing. We can move on. Anyway, all right. Let's talk about AI again. This was a big week. Ads launched on ChatGPT. I think all three of us probably pay for ChatGPT, so we didn't see it, but ads are out there. They launched an ad pilot program. Seemingly all the holdcos are participating. Omnicom had 30 brands alone paying a minimum of $200K for this. So this thing is out there. There was an opinion piece yesterday. I don't know if you guys saw it. Title in New York Times: "OpenAI is making the mistakes Facebook made. I quit." From an ex-OpenAI employee, basically saying that this person believes they're gonna veer. It's only a matter of time before they veer away from their principles that they outlined and start making things like hyper-targeting, invasive, and creepy. What do you guys think?
quitting big open labs is like the thing to do. These people
I know.
quit so often. Like
This was a big week for quitters.
people stay at these jobs for like a month and they make $1 billion and then they retire. There's some guy who like moved to England to write poetry because he makes so much money on Anthropic.
He's a senior Anthropic guy.
Yeah. It's good gig if you can get it, I guess.
Big week for quitters.
It's a refresh on the whole zero moment of truth thing, right? So like, the stuff shifts further. The digital shelf keeps getting closer to the couch, right? And so now what we're seeing is, reimagining advertising much more, in the search and discovery phase, reimagining the experience itself. That's actually one of the reasons I'm so excited to be involved in AAO, actually, is it's being developed to work across all surfaces, across all types of experience. It's about innovating the experience, not just automating what we do today. And I think this is there's going to be a lot of innovation and changing the way the shopper journey works and being able to better serve the shopper. That's what this is doing. So I think it's a good step.
I was waiting for this moment for us to be able to talk about this stuff with you. Thank you, Matt. Are the LLMs involved with AAO yet?
We do have one of them that's on the verge of joining, but I can't announce the names yet. But yes, one of them is coming in, and we expect others to follow.
That is awesome. Because I think that's the thing that has thus far been missing with all of this collaboration and talk, which is, the LLMs just being leaned in on the advertising front. That's really good news.
And also that's important. And so is big brands.
Right.
So I think, we have one that's in our kitchen cabinet, we call it, hasn't gone public with their involvement yet, but that'll come shortly. And then we have several other brands. So we want to have 10 brands on the board. Right. And right now, looking at our pipeline, we have around that many we're talking to. So hopefully we'll have more news to share shortly.
You have so many things you can't talk about. Somewhat frustrating.
I wish I could share more, but they would probably be upset if I put their logo out there before they've actually signed the papers.
I'm just going to ask Claude what Matt won't tell us.
Matt, final question on this front. Do you have any thoughts on what ads on LLMs end up, looking like? Everybody's going crazy saying, they're going to be commerce ads. They're going to be just, kind of native, contextual, because you're so close to this stuff, you're the person I really want to weigh in here.
So think of it how retail media is more search than display. This is similar, right? Like a lot of what the power of search is that people reveal their intent. It's the ultimate contextual advertising, right? And behavioral contextual together, right? So this is it's native. You're directly involved in what they're doing. They don't, they're in shopping mode. Rather than, they're actually entering and revealing what they're doing, and you're solving a problem. It's like you're solving what they're doing. Problem's the wrong word. You're creating a solution for what they're trying to do right there. So it's not just, an ad. It's actually more directly relevant to what they're doing. So I think it's a great evolution of search. That's why obviously Google is all in and with Gemini, because their core business is impacted here. But I think you'll see a lot of retail media impacted by this play, what's going on here as well.
All right, you have a POV on this?
I think it is much more like search, but it's richer because first of all, you have more words. Search terms are 2-3 words, and prompts are 20, 30. You also have sort of this history concept where I'm continually asking more and more questions to narrow things down. I honestly don't know if Google uses immediately prior search terms in their algorithm. I don't think they do, which kind of makes you think a little bit about how valuable this could be. My big hope, and I've said this on the pod before, I've even said this to some of the people who work at these companies, is that they don't assume it's got to be the same ad format as search, short text links. I want to see some images. Give me some images. I'm a human being. Picture tells 1,000 words. Let's get some images.
Let's think for a minute the way the human brain works. The human brain is a memory-making machine. that we think actually 95% of human thought is more emotional than rational. And it's actually image based, not word based. So we think in metaphors. And there's actually 20 to 30 universally relevant metaphors. Like, think of like a good neighbor. State Farm is there. The metaphor is neighbor, right? And so really good advertising often taps into our metaphors. Coca-Cola Hilltop, the iconic ad, is a connector. Lou Carbone taught me about this. He invented the phrase experience management, and he very much about the importance of emotion and memory. So really good advertising taps into emotion, taps into imagery. The brain works that way. AI is increasingly about images as opposed to language. There's actually a risk here that if we focus so much on text analytics and bots mining text, we actually lose what drives the human being and emotion. So if bots are going to a site analyzing text, then that's the 5% of the iceberg that's above the water rather than 95% below it, which is emotion.
Right. And this is the story I've played out in digital advertising to date is effectively that Meta is the top of the funnel and the middle of the funnel and Google's the bottom. And that reflects in the ad formats and the targeting types and really everything else. So this is unknown, really, what AI based ads will work best with. I think it should work in the entire funnel, right?
Absolutely. You just made me think of that stat from last year that was like eye-popping, which was Meta's Reels are now on a run rate that's larger than US television. And it's all AI, by the way, right? From a targeting optimization perspective. So you can see how this stuff can work. There's still some stuff to talk about. So Geo, Matt, is this a category that we're going to have some board representation on? GEO, AEO?
You got me there. So like I think that we hadn't thought about a fifth category like that. Like we have talked about, do we need people who are like luminaries, like from like thought leaders or other association executives or things like that? What you're describing for me feels like it falls into the tech bucket, like of our four primary categories, rather than like for example, we're not breaking out LLMs from other ad tech, and giving them their own category. So that Geo would fall there in my view.
Got it. That makes sense. Geo's it's a category. There's like probably a dozen companies. They've all raised now just with the brand light raise of this week, $20-30 million. And, it's growing fast. And I think it's having a moment. There was an announcement this week that I thought was pretty cool. I don't know if you guys had a chance to take a look at it. So Evertune, which was one of the first, it's a team that has some experience from TTD. They launched what is effectively like answer retargeting. It's like a pretty cool like way to use some of that data in a programmatic way, and they're doing it in concert with obviously TTD and Index. I thought that was neat.
Yeah, I read the press release and I scratched my head and said that sounds cool. I can't really figure out how it works, but it seems pretty cool. Are they cooking people who are at like second tier AI usage?
There was light on that.
I think this category, I'm fascinated with it. It's already pivoted. It's not, the O is not appropriate in the acronym. They're not optimizing anymore because basically the first pass at optimizing turned out to be kind of like gray hat, black hat SEO, where the way to optimize your brand was to post a whole bunch of fake crap on Reddit. And no one really wants to do that. So all these companies have pivoted and now they're basically analytics. It's like, what do the LLMs think about your brand is the question they're answering, which is really valuable and really complicated.
Yeah, so important. We made an unannounced investment in this category, and that's exactly what the company's focused on. Final thing.
I think this is a huge. It's not just the search, but the whole social influence, social optimization play. You see firms like Bazaar Voice making a big push around like how to think about influence and social proof and getting the AI, and how does an AI experience like and look for social proof. So I think search and social are being hit. Are going to be changed through this. Yeah.
Absolutely. Final point on another emergent category that we're kind of obsessed with, this idea of content marketplaces. there was an announcement. I guess it was an announcement. It was, a scoop that Amazon is reportedly planning to launch one for publishers this year. So I think it was last week we had Microsoft. This week it's Amazon. This seems to be a real thing.
It is really the talk of publishers right now.
It has to be.
I had a publisher meeting. I won't say with who, and they're very much looking at this, and they said a couple things, which I thought were takeaways are interesting. Which was one, yes, we want the money, and they should pay us for our content. Okay, big surprise there. Two, there's a huge difference between a deeply reported investigative journalism report that could cost tens of thousands of dollars to produce a single effectively essay about the topic versus throwaway stringer reporting on sports and finance. And it's not clear how Marketplace deals with that. That's kind of like point number two. And point number three, which I thought was fascinating, was, and there's a big publisher. They said, we don't have the rights to our own content all the time. We may write an article, have a stringer write an article. We own the text, and then we put a Getty image as the main image. We do not have the right to resell that image. Or we may have a guest op-ed. A lot of op-eds are guest posts or have, rights sharing with the author. And so there's actually a really deep rights problem when it comes to licensing content in an automated fashion.
What a headache.
I also had a separate conversation with, I think I can say it was with John Roberts from People, because he's kind of one of the intellectual leaders of this whole movement. And he was just basically saying the math is, what are you making on ads on an RPM basis? Revenue per page, not per CPM, right? And versus what are you going to be able to license it for? Because effectively you're replacing a human being with a bot in this case. And then there's other things to consider, like you don't have to pay to get the traffic, whereas humans, you have a marketing budget to get people to the traffic and such. But as a first pass, that's the way you should look at it.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And with traffic down, we keep hearing this 30% plus or minus stat being thrown around. Like it's not an insignificant amount of money you need to make up.
We went through a trend years ago where the cost of content was out of whack with the revenue per content, which created a real challenge for content publishers that had lots and lots of islands of content that they couldn't afford they weren't able to monetize a lot of the content they were producing. I think, for a lot of brands or publishers that on one CPG I worked with, actually, we quantified it spends 300,000 man hours a year creating content. So there's an enormous amount of investment in content that goes out there. One of the underappreciated things with Agentic is it will dramatically lower the cost of complexity of creating content and experimentation. When you look at advertising, DCO is largely a limited number of versions still, because the brands and the agencies are worried about creating hundreds of versions of the content and experimenting with it. But now what you're going to see is the ability to create lots and lots of versions and experiment at a much larger scale goes up. Plus, you're going to have the data signal to be able to optimize which content is used against which audience in a way that's aligned to what's happening elsewhere in the customer experience. And so this, by the way, when you do this, you get a 50 to 150% improvement in ad effectiveness. So like this is not an efficiency play. This is an effectiveness play.
Yeah. As a separate related note, Nikita, I forget his last name, the head of product for the head of product for X, he posted yesterday something kind of like, he must have been having a bad day. He said something like 6 months from now, 99% of all content in all channels will be fake.
We call it, Randy and I call it crap with AI, CRAIP. Instead of slop. Like, is it creativity, where creativity is spelled CRE parentheses AI and parentheses tivity, right? So is it creativity or crap and slop? And there's too much, stuff that is obviously people have learned to do performance marketing with YouTube and things like that. Too much crap out there. But there's going to be a lot of creativity where people embrace it and figure out what's working. And so I actually think we think it's a creative opportunity. That's a creative revolution. That's why, but Jim Lazinski at Northwestern, refers to it as moving from authorship to codesmanship, from authorship to orchestration, where creativity is merged with science. We came up with some personas we published about recently in our Substack winning experience, where one of them is the molecular gastronomist, which is basically cooking with chemistry, art and science together.
That's super cool. Stay on X for one second. There's they're pushing articles. There's so much slop with these articles all day. But there was that one that was viral. Something is happening. Did you guys read that?
I did.
By
And
Matt Schomer. Yeah.
Yeah, it kind of goes back to a little bit what I was saying about the Super Bowl, which is the majority of people have no idea how much AI has progressed in the past 12 months, 18 months. I was talking to my wife about it. The ordinary non-technical people still believe it's a great replacement for search, but it hallucinates a lot and you can't count on it and it can't really replace you in your job. And they're totally wrong. And this is what the article was saying, which is basically, it's already better than 99% of programmers. It's better than probably 90% of lawyers. It's better than 99% of customer service agents. It's better than 99% of account managers. It hit that level just in the last 60 days or so, and people need to update their preconceptions about what AI can do, because
you don't have to. I'll give you two examples, real client examples. Don't hate me for not using names, but I will tell you a little enough to you can probably guess. But so like working with one travel client, we were looking at we built some personas of who they were targeting, and we essentially. My point here is that the human's still in the loop, but you can do like in days what used to take months. So we created lots and lots of versions of the ad in days where we took their existing content and insights and ran, basically prompted the AI to, in this case, we use Wevo.ai because it's been trained on millions of user tests. And we essentially ran the creative and it actually comes up with alternative copy and images that you can do. And then the human beings iterate on them. So we're able to, and then we ran those through Facebook, through Meta ads. And we got a 50% lift compared to DCO. So the control was DCO. And we got a 50% lift using the ads that were AI generated with human editing afterwards. So it's an iterative process. That's one example. Another is one of the top 5 e-commerce client. And what they're doing is they're trying to dramatically improve the workflow for creating content, copywriting, image resizing, image design, translations. Like you can dramatically, turbocharge the workflow. That's what we're excited about, is the discovery and the creative and the planning and then the measurement, not just the executing the transactions. The programmatic is a thin slice of the value chain. It's an important one, but it's actually the efficiency side of it is not what gets me jazzed. It's the effectiveness side that gets me jazzed.
Totally agree. Hey, I think we're at time. Do you want to touch on one more thing or call it our?
No, let's call it.
Cool.
This was a great conversation. Matt, Egol, thank you so much. You're here from JourneySpark, a consulting company, also an author and podcaster, and now involved with Agentic Advertising.org. Thanks for being here.
Been a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Matt. We'll see you next week, everybody.